Places like that that have massive marketing dollars and exposure to a broad range of the population, right? Like
Mhm.
everybody watches sports, right? I think there could be an opportunity there. Just again thinking out loud. So another question: people of color are more likely than whites to operate sole proprietor non-employer businesses like gig workers or contractors. Is this a pool of people we need to focus on to help turn them into employers?
Yes, we agree.
I sit on the Greater Philadelphia Latino Chamber Board, and we're looking at this very issue. We were the vast majority of businesses are in this category that are non-employer sole proprietors. I think there's something like I want to say 10,000 small businesses that that while they have family employment, they don't have outside employment, and there was only like 2,000 that had employers. In other words, it seemed like it was over 80%. And so it was a market that we wanted to make sure that wasn't getting that support, the smaller business owner that's being talked about here, Tom's talking about. And so we're shifting our strategy in the future because a lot of our programs were geared towards employer-based Hispanic businesses, but we were leaving back more of these grassroots businesses. And so and it made sense from a data perspective to focus there because the majority of businesses are in this category. And so at some point, we're going to run out of constituency. And so it makes sense that we do a two-prong approach. It's not just the employer base, but also the ones that want to grow to that level. And we were needing to provide more programs to focus on that business. In fact, we realize now that we probably need to have some support and some of our offices to be in the neighborhood because that's where those businesses are. And being a downtown organization that people we're getting training and having mixers, that was great to help, the business that wanted procurement contracts, but what about those neighborhood businesses that want to grow? And so it's a new opportunity for the Chamber of Commerce, as an example.
Well, I mean, you guys are in the neighborhood, right? I mean, I'd
Mhm.
imagine one of your reasons for buying that building initially was because it was in a neighborhood. So it seems like the Enterprise Center would be pretty well placed to kind of pull people out. Is there a particular strategy that you've identified for doing that, or is this?
Well, we think we've never met a CEO or a founder or a entrepreneur that says, I don't want to hire people, right? If they say that, it's because they don't have that predictable income to meet the payroll. Because think about it, if you pay weekly, you pay twice a month, you pay monthly, it comes really fast. Okay. And you need payroll when you hire someone. It's just yourself, you can get by. But when you start adding 2 and 3 people to your payroll, all of you guys know what it is to cover payroll. It can cause stress. And so we have found that in order to get a small business to hire more and more people from the community, Jeff, is the conversation we've been having around contracts and predictable income. And then that capital gets tied to those contracts and predictable income, and then you will see new jobs are created. It's a formula that we just have to work over and over again.
I mean, that's the reason that we've become interested in institutional supply chain, right? Because it's about the most secure game we have.
Right. If you own a flower shop on Market Street, a small flower shop, you will hire more people if you got a contract to deliver flowers every week.
Right.
Right? You'll buy a van to deliver those flowers. You will hire people to help package those flowers. But if you don't have a contract, it's just going to be you running that flower shop.
Right. And to point back to the financial sector, if you can wave a contract in front of a bank's face, they're going to lend you the money. If you just,
Not necessarily.
or well, they're more likely to lend you the money, let's say, right? But
Not necessarily.
Keep going.
Not necessarily. They're still going to want to look at your balance sheet. Okay, it goes back to they're going to look at your deficiencies, right? And so what we want to do is work with banks to finance the future rather than focus so much on your past, because most minority Black and brown businesses start flat on their back with very little resources. And if you vetting them, as Dan know, you can spend all day long looking at that past doesn't matter. You either gonna make a character decision or you're gonna base it on finance in the future.
Right. It's interesting. I wrote a book about the real estate industry and its formation in the 1910s and 20s, and it was all about character references. Everything was about character references, right?
Mhm.
And you know, when you had community banks, people were more, they knew each other better, right? And those
Right.
character references mattered more. Now it's just credit scores and very abstract information, which has taken a lot of the relationship out of this process.
Well,
Just
Dan alluded to is the algorithms, and if they don't meet those algorithms, you get kicked out and you don't get the funds.
Yeah. I mean, one of the reasons that I'm grateful to you for educating us, and I'll just give a little bit of a plug for Paige and the work we're trying to do together here, is getting the institutions, you know, your Penns, Drexels, Chops, Comcast, Aramark, Independence, more aligned with doing local and diverse purchasing, but also making sure that there's consulting and advisory support services for those businesses so that they can get to scale, right, and become major employers. Because we've got a raft of really good businesses in this city that are minority led. They've been plateaued and kept in this separate but equal system. And the way to get them out is to treat them like any other business, right? What are the specific areas that business needs some guidance in? Can we get a McKinsey? Can we get a Deloitte? Can we get an EY to help them build that capacity so that they can raise capital, hire a top quality CFO or whatever it is they need, a marketing director, so that they can get on the path to scale, which is really what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Path to scale is my new mantra that I'm imbibing here, thanks to our conversations. Got one last question I think we have time for. And this is going to be a hot potato question. Do our political leaders really understand how to run a business, and how do we educate them?
I'm gonna let you answer that, Jeff.
I know what I don't have a filter, so you can.
I'm with Della, Jeff. That's your question.
Well, you guys have both operated in different parts of the state. Like, what are your views on this? Do we have enough political leaders who understand business?
Well, for me, I look at it as not just the political leaders. I look at the whole city of Philadelphia. And we have grown accustomed to a set of lenses that we have become comfortable with. And Jeff, you know this, and trying to change those lenses along with a new thought process is very difficult. But I think the one silver lining that is coming out of COVID is that back in March, when we had to shut down, it really brought the old economy to a screeching halt. And this is a wonderful opportunity as we do an economic reset to clean off those lenses and put on a new set of lenses and look at Black and Brown, look at Philadelphia differently. And I concur that we should stop looking at Philadelphia, what it doesn't have or what it does have, and look at Black and Brown enterprises the same way. And we will see a difference over time. So I don't want to get into the politics of entrepreneurship, but just say that in closing, we need to change our lenses.
That's a great line.
A good point. Maybe I look at this question slightly different. Can we get our political leaders to understand our CDFI business and educate them? So I kind of changed it. And I think that in COVID, we had to do that. In COVID, we had to, and I think we learned with the politicians that businesses did not need loans, they needed grants. They did not. Why? Because we'd only be financing losses, right? There's a reason why we're not lending as CDFIs right now, because businesses need grants. And so we went with that data and that mantra in mind. The politicians were right on it, both in Philly and in Harrisburg, because I think they understood the pain of these businesses, that they could not reopen. They couldn't even pay their bill without having grants. I've been in banking for, I guess, 35 years now, and I've never provided grants to small businesses. But COVID required us to think about this problem in different ways. One was the lesson that around Della is that we got to look at capacity differently. It's not about whether you have the capacity, it's how you can buy the capacity to help these small businesses. And the second lesson was these businesses don't need loans, they need grants. And I think that message got through these politicians. It happened in Harrisburg. And recently we talked to council and we talked to commerce and finance, and we said, you got CARES Act money. Let's get that to small businesses because they're suffering. And they gave us $30 million on top of the state's 225. So I see this, they don't have to be business owners, but they have to understand what the business owner needs, whether it's through us or through a realization they have themselves. So I do think there's hope for our elected officials because they did come around and they are trying to deliver in COVID because they see the same pain that we see.
Yeah, I mean, they're hearing it from their constituents, and they've got to, and council members in particular, because they're so close to the ground. So what I hear, just to wrap up a few threads here in the final 3 minutes, that, the public sector needs to underwrite the losses, right? I mean, as a country, we're coming out of this with a huge deficit one way or the other, right? And unlike the deficits that were accrued in the first half of the current administration, the deficits that we're accruing now are actually needed to support growth at the bottom and not tax cuts at the top, right? So, so we need to keep pushing that message through all channels up to the new administration. Like this, the public sector has to underwrite the losses, or the entire small business ecosystem is just going to collapse. And I don't think that's hyperbole, especially as this second wave comes in and sticks with us. I think you've taught us a lot about the way CDFIs work, the role for equity capital in this equation, the challenges of getting businesses who are in the informal economy out of the informal economy. I think this has been a really, really rich discussion, and a couple of things that you both said. Communities of color deserve access to capital. I would add to that, communities we're idiots in the majority power structure if we don't understand that we need communities of color to have access to capital if we're going to have a functioning economy in the future, because this is the future. Like everything else, like our society is changing, becoming more diverse, becoming blacker and browner. And if we're not able to break down these structural barriers and make sure that the businesses are being started by people of color have the same access to capital that the majority has had for 500 years, where this economy is going to never grow to where it needs to grow.
Yeah.
So any last words, either of you two, in the last minute? Got 1 minute each for a closing statement if you want it.
Well, I've enjoyed being on this panel with both of you, and I'm looking forward to changes that are going to come about from this new economy. It's going to be rough, but I think long term it's going to get much better.
Dan, you're muted.
I'm looking forward to a day come January 20th where communities of color are not going to be blamed for their challenges. These challenges are imposed on us, and I'm looking for a new day of dignity, particularly the people of color, and I think that day's coming soon. So I couldn't be any more pleased. I think we're getting over the 4-year nightmare of this kind of message and this kind of tyranny in America. And so I think we were standing up for that, standing against that. And I think now, I think truth and I think the goodness of people has prevailed.
Dan, amen. Amen.
For Treasury.
I'm not running for office.
Treasury Secretary.
Hello.
I'll turn it back to you, Tom, to close us out.
Hey, we're closed. Thank you, everybody. Next month, we've got, who do we have next month? But we're talking about, if it happens, we have to organize around the holidays and Christmas time. Hopefully it works, but we're aiming to have Phil Goldsmith in the next, next session. We all know Phil. He's been around a while. He wrote a book. We want to hear his thoughts on these same topics, equity, in all the institutions he's been involved with. So thank you, everybody, again. And thanks for sticking in, and have a good Thanksgiving.